Hey, welcome to the Nomadic Abundance Podcast, slow travel tips and inspiration for living an abundant life abroad.
Yep, we're Joel and Michelle, the Wandering Hartz, and we've been traveling full-time since 2019.
We're on a mission to help you learn how to incorporate full or even slow time travel seamlessly into your work or even your retirement life for a more abundant lifestyle. All right, so today we thought we'd recap essentially our journey to Albania this year. And of course, we spent 2 months living there in Saranda. We had discussed previously in another video our time in North Macedonia and why we regretted not spending essentially more time there in our previous trip report episode. And that actually ended up being pretty popular, so we decided we would see if we can get lightning to strike twice and see if you guys like these kinds of videos. So today we're basically going to discuss how we got to Albania from the US. We're going to talk about a couple different routing options that you might have to get there, essentially how we were able to save some money on our flights, and of course some of the great experiences that we've had and that we recommend for you as well to go check out if you're planning on traveling to Albania or the Saranda area specifically. And of course, whether or not any of the changes that we noticed from our time last year in Saranda, if they really affected, how much they really affected us this year, and whether it would affect or make a decision in whether we want to go back there again in the future.
Mm-hmm. So if you're one of our newsletter subscribers, then you're probably already familiar kind of with our trip there. We have already shared a little bit about that, and we also put in some tips. So if you want to sign up for our newsletter, you can. We'll pop it up on the screen here. Just scan the QR code. So we started our 2024 travel season a little later than we were expecting.
Yeah.
We had to stay in the States for some medical things. So one of our main goals for the first leg of the trip was to revisit a couple places that we have been to in the last, 10 years, 20 years.
Yeah.
And so that actually took us to Dublin, Ireland, and then Corfu, and then on to Albania.
So leaving the U.S. is what we're going to talk about at the beginning, and that was essentially our journey began in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where we still call home, and it's also where we previously had a house that we sold along with everything we owned in October of 2019. Now, as of 2024, Albania and Saranda specifically are not really very easy to get to, especially from the United States.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of direct flights, and in fact, I think there might be a new direct flight that's supposed to be started from New York?
New York to Tirana, possibly next year.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, maybe.
Other than that, Corfu is actually one of the closest airports to Saranda, as it's a Corfu, Greece. It's the island directly across from Saranda. In fact, you can actually see it from Saranda. It occupies most of your view. And the great thing about it is it's just a ferry ride away. Mm-hmm. So, which is why we have a tendency to try to go in that way rather than maybe going through Tirana and then taking a bus ride down.
Yeah.
But there's a couple things to note about that too. There's seasonality issues, which reduces flights. Mm-hmm. So essentially, the season kind of starts basically around the 1st of April, mm-hmm. where you finally start getting more flights coming in to Corfu that aren't like kind of crazy expensive.
Yeah.
Or where you don't have to fly through Athens first. Mm-hmm. And then there is supposed to be a new airport opening up in Vlora, and that is supposed to be sometime in 2025. Mm-hmm. But we'll see if that actually happens on time. Yeah. Not a lot of stuff happens on time in Albania. Mm-hmm. So other than that, to get there, we would have had to route through several different airports if we didn't want to fly directly into Tirana. And take like a 4 to 6 hour bus down. So what we end up doing is kind of working backwards, mm-hmm. and starting from Saranda and trying to figure out like how can we work backwards from there to the U.S. to try to find our ideal route.
Right. Yeah. And so we did that through Ryanair, mm-hmm. and we ended up leaving out of Minneapolis. That's kind of our second hub. I have family up there, and Minneapolis actually is a really easy airport to get in and out of it, and they have a ton of international flights, surprisingly, and they're always adding more, which is nice. So yeah, we left from Minneapolis and went to Dublin, mm-hmm. first. So that was our first layover, 3-day layover. So that was fun to get back to there. We hadn't been back since 2017. We went to go see a U2 concert there.
Yeah.
So that was nice to return to. We actually did the Teeling Distillery tour.
Yes, which was really, really cool.
Yeah.
We definitely recommend it. We have done other tours previously in Ireland, and this one was still really cool. And it's like right there in Dublin. So
yeah, it's right in the city. It was easy for us to get to, and
it wasn't terribly expensive either.
No, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
I don't think. And then also too, we actually got a travel vaccination while we were there.
Yeah.
Because it actually ended up being half of the price in the United States. So
versus the United States.
Yeah, versus the United States.
Yeah. So yeah, that was another reason that we decided to route through Dublin. That plus we could also get a direct flight from Dublin to Corfu. And it was actually their first flight of the season as well.
Yeah.
So that helped out a lot. But our flight getting from Minneapolis or US to Dublin was through KLM is what we used. And we actually did that for 20,000 points. And those are, and I think it was like $150 per ticket to do that. And again, that was a direct flight. And we basically the points we used was from our Chase Sapphire Preferred. So if you don't have a card like that, we definitely recommend those, especially before, like when you're in your trip planning phase, especially if you're planning on doing a lot of slow travel in your process, be sure to get a card early, maybe 1 or 2 cards, hit that minimum spend, because you can really use those points to help you reduce your costs a lot. So again, if you can just be sure to reuse them responsibly, don't put anything on your card that you can't pay off immediately. But they're kind of like a full-time traveler's secret weapon is basically kind of cards and point hacking a little bit. We don't get like crazy into it, but just know that there's like an easy level you can do without going kind of crazy on it.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then as far as like getting from Nashville to Minneapolis, we actually also used points for that, and that was through some leftover Southwest points that we had laying around. So, now another thing is when we got to Corfu, we wanted to spend a little bit more time there because previously we'd only been like in and out of Corfu, maybe like overnight. So this time we added 1 extra day just so we could try to see a little bit of the Corfu town area more than we had previously, which is really nice. In fact, I think we did a video where you can check out on our Wandering Hartz YouTube channel where we did kind of a tour of our stay there, which was really nice, as well as the castle that were fortification there too. We kind of like did a little tour of that too. So check that out.
Yes. So, okay. So next up, I guess, is arriving into Corfu, Greece. So like we said, we left from Dublin. I think it was the first Ryanair flight of the season to Corfu. We ended up leaving late. I think like, I don't know, 2.5 hours late, I think, from Dublin. So yeah, we didn't get in until like, I don't know, 11 at night.
Maybe 10:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a big issue because it's something to prepare for too. You always got to make sure that you don't want to time your thing out too quick because you might have these delays. For us, it almost put us into the next day, which actually would have been better because what happens, we end up going from non-Schengen to Schengen and with only like an hour left in the...
No, like once we got up to the passport counter, it was 11:30.
Yeah. So
So that was
one whole day burned because of 30 minutes.
Whole Schengen day.
Yeah, that sucked.
If we just would have waited.
Yeah, so that might happen to you too. So, and again, they only had like 1 officer, and that's kind of why it took forever to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was really easy. Once you get out of the airport, there's plenty of taxis. So just a heads up on that. We took a taxi directly to Old Town, which is where we were staying. And if you're going to do that, just make sure they're about $15 or €15 is what it should cost you for a taxi to get to Old Town from the airport. Definitely recommend that. And go in knowing that. And then what we usually do is just say, hey, we're going to Old Town. Was that about €15? And then they go, yeah. And you agree ahead of time. It makes it easier. There is a desk that you can go to in the airport and book. Of course, it's not open that late at night. But if you get in earlier in the day, but it's going to cost you more. They're just upcharging you for everything. And I think we did that one time and it was like 24 US.
I think so, yeah.
So definitely don't do that. You can save your money.
Yeah.
And then again, there's no ride shares in Corfu.
Right.
I don't think there's actually ride shares in Greece. Let me know if that's not accurate. But from what I understand, there are no ride shares. It's all like taxis only. But
yeah.
So, and then now when we did leave, it was actually pretty easy. We just got a taxi from our hotel to the port, and which is just a quick ride. It's only a few minute ride, and it should cost you about 10 euro, maybe upwards of 15 euro as well. And and then we'll be doing it from there.
And then that's where we got on the ferry then to take us over to Saranda. So that's usually going to be like, an early morning ferry, 8 o'clock, I think.
That's what we like to do. You can do other ferries as well. There's afternoon ones, and there's even like a car ferry. Yeah. But we always just do like the passenger ferry.
Right. But the ones that we're running at that time because of the seasonality are just the 2 hydrofoil ones. So it takes about 45 minutes then to get to Saranda, and there's two lines that you can book, and you can also book it online, so it's really easy.
Yeah. And it's not too terribly expensive.
No.
Right.
Yeah, it was like $36, I think, for both of us.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
It wasn't too bad. 36 to 42, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and just note too that there is a time change when you're going from Greece to Albania. You're heading to Central European Standard Time.
Which is, plus 2 hours.
Which is, what Albania is on. So you will arrive at the same time, basically, that you leave.
Yeah, exactly. Same time as you leave. So, now speaking about arriving in Saranda, if you go through the port like we did, customs is actually pretty easy there. It's usually super fast. They're really friendly. And if you're a U.S. passport holder, you do get 1 year upon arrival. It's super special. It's like one of just a couple countries in the world where we have like our passports like super, super strong. And basically it's great, especially if you're planning on staying there a little bit longer, more than just like a few days or a month or whatever. So just remember that's a good thing to note. Also, they're not going to stamp you in. So Albania basically has an electronic system. So they just kind of register it. So you won't get your stamp. So because of that, we always recommend that you keep copies of all of your transportation, your hotels, all that kind of stuff. So that if you do have an issue at some point, like if you end up going across a different border where they don't have, they're not up, or like a small border or something like that, then you might have to, you usually have the paperwork so you can show like your time in or even your time out of Schengen.
Yeah.
Another thing to consider, right, in Saranda is the taxis there. They're notoriously bad, and they will overcharge you at the drop of a hat. So, and there really isn't a ride share in Saranda. There's one that we've found. We tried using it, but it doesn't seem to like really have any cars running on it right now in Saranda, and that's called Clust, C-L-U-S-T. So maybe by the time this video comes up or time you watch this, maybe they'll kind of have gotten that figured out, which would be fantastic. But otherwise, you can expect to pay about 10 euros to 15 euros or 1,000 to 15,000 lek to pretty much get anywhere in town, which is
not 15,000 lek. 1,500.
1,500 lek. Whoops. Well, $15. So.
Yeah. So that's just keep that in mind. And then when you get there, so you want to change your money into the lek, because Albania is very much cash based. So you're not going to find a lot of places that are going to take credit cards. So you definitely want to have cash at all times.
Yeah, for sure. Now the exchange rate does fluctuate a little bit. It's usually somewhere between 90 to 100 lek per $1 US. So it actually makes it pretty easy to kind of like guesstimate pricing without having to like take out like a calculator all the time.
Right.
And then of course they do have pretty decent currency exchange booths in town. The ones right there on First Road are actually pretty good, and we've had good luck. I haven't felt like we've gotten like taken advantage of when we've done that, which is also really nice.
Yeah. And then, yeah, to get out of the ATM, you are going to have to pay a fee, which is different from last year.
Yeah.
There was a bank last year that didn't charge any fees. This year they do. So just expect to pay around 500 to 600 lek to get money out of any ATM in Saranda. So it's good to have a credit card that reimburses you.
Well, a debit card.
Or a debit card, yeah, that reimburses you. Yeah, for those ATM fees, we use the Charles Schwab.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's worked out really great. Another hot tip: if you haven't done it, get a Schwab account because it'll save you so much money.
Yep.
And then so basically, detour accommodations, we didn't bother with the taxi this time. We just kind of walked because it was just across the promenade, which takes us into kind of like what it was like going back to Saranda and kind of settling in. I mean, it was really nice because it's always nice going back to a place that is already familiar because it just makes it so much easier to get kind of like back into a rhythm and you know everything. And so that was really awesome. And then we also had a really cool apartment.
Yeah.
An amazing view.
Oh my gosh, our apartment, we had the most amazing view of the water in Corfu. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah, and that was like just right near the promenade, kind of the central area, right on the promenade. So we ended up being, the only real issue with that was just that you are so close. So on the weekends you might get a little bit of, noise from the roads, or the party boats. And there are party boats, these little pirate boats that come in Saranda,
and they will blast their music. And you know about music, like the sound travels over water.
Yeah. So but that's pretty much everywhere in the town, unless you're like around like one of the corners of the bay. So, but yeah, and other than that, it was really easy for us to kind of get settled in. And like we said before, like getting your work-life balance figured out, or even if you're retired, and just kind of getting your day figured out so that if you don't have, whether you have a hobby or not, kind of getting into your routine, we feel is like really important.
Yeah.
And like for us, it helps to do that. It also helps to kind of get a sense of the place first. Everything from like, knowing where to get your groceries, where all the markets
favorite restaurants.
Yeah. Where to go for the ATMs, or even like the gym that like we went to and stuff like that. And so we've actually put together like a quick start guide to help you like kind of get settled in directly into Saranda. So basically it's all the information you need to know so you can kind of hit the ground running and then just like be able to settle in fast instead of taking, like a week or so to kind of get used to everything. So, but you can check the show notes if you want to learn how to get that as well. But like we said, we got into a gym pretty quick. It's important for us to do that and try to stay healthy, especially after our time previously in the States, we just needed to get back into a routine. Yeah, into it. Since we were there last year, we knew we had met a lot of people. Yeah. And it was a lot of expats as well as some locals. And it was really cool because we had a ton of our other slow travel friends that we met last year as well that were also back in town. So
yeah, that was nice. Yeah. Yeah, we had friends the whole time that we were there. So that was really nice. We had our friends from Latvia drove their car all the way to Saranda. So we got to hang out with them a lot and do a whole bunch of fun things. We went to the beach in Samil, had dinner there. We also went to the Mussel House, which I highly recommend. Yeah. Mussels are in season in May.
Yeah, I think May is when they kind of start getting big enough that they can start serving them.
Yeah, and they're amazing. Wow. Like the best, I'd say the best I've ever had. Yeah. They're super fresh, and the seafood and the fish in Saranda is amazing.
It's excellent, and it's very affordable too.
Yeah. Yeah, we also went to Lakovo Beach. We grilled on the beach there. We went to the Blue Eye, had a picnic, and hiked around that area. There's also a monastery, St. Nicholas Monastery, that we went to. When is that from? The Byzantine?
I think so. Yeah, it's one of those where they had actually painted over everything when it got turned into I think it was like a mosque.
Oh yeah.
And then now they're kind of restoring it back by taking off some of the paint.
Oh, that's right.
So it's really interesting to see how that restoration is going with that too.
Yeah. We also did a hike close to Permit called Lang Garcia. I'm probably not saying that right.
Langarica, I think,
Yeah.
canyon. It's super awesome. It's basically like a slot canyon where you're going through like water and stuff like that, and like up to here. It was super cool.
Yeah.
And it's also known for hot springs as well.
Yeah.
So there's some little hot springs and pools that feed into it. And we did a video about it, so we actually did a proper vlog. Definitely check that out. It's a lot of fun, and we definitely highly recommend that and all those other things. If you're going to go visit that part of Albania, we highly recommend you do all of those things. And there's so much more you can do too. It's like if you love outdoors and that sort of thing, it's a paradise for that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful country.
Yeah,
it really is.
And there were a couple other things in Saranda, especially during the time that we were there, which was April and May. And they had like a fish festival, which is kind of the first one they did.
Yeah, that was the first one. That was to kick off the summer season. That was actually really fun.
Yeah, because they had like little booths for all the different vendors, and you can just go and try all the different
There
stuff.
was music every night.
Yeah, they had actually pretty good music too. I was really surprised about that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and of course we got to hang out with like all of our friends from last year, which is really cool, and even make some new friends this year. Some of which we ended up like traveling to a couple other countries with too. So
yeah, that was really fun. Well, some of them were subscribers that we met in Saranda, so that was really fun. People who had already been subscribed to our channel, so we ended up meeting them, and then we ended up traveling with them all summer. So
yeah, there was a big group of us, and I'd say about half that group we ended up meeting up. In every country we went to, there was at least half of us there, which was really, really cool. So we kind of called it like Nomad Camp, essentially, our little nomad tribe. So it was a pretty cool thing. Another couple things here just about Saranda real quick, and then we'll kind of get into the next section here. And that is that we did notice a couple things changed from our last time, and that was that the weather was a little bit nicer this last year. Also, a lot of restaurants and other businesses were actually opened up quite a bit earlier than last year, like almost like a month earlier.
Yeah.
Which is really nice. And the city had been doing a lot of work, so there was a lot of construction everywhere, like tearing up the roads and stuff, but they've really been trying to upgrade their infrastructure, which is good because it's desperately needed. And then we also noticed that there was, last year, if you watched our pros and cons video or whatever from last year, you'll note that we had talked about there being a lot of like transient families that would just come in for the summer, and they could get really, really aggressive with panhandling and begging and stuff like that. And this year, it looks like maybe the city or something they tried to keep an eye on that a bit more, so they're not just bothering you like every step you go. This year it was actually really calm. They kind of kept to like a different part of town, so that made it a lot easier as well. So next we want to talk about a couple of the obstacles that we did have real quick, because these are some things that might come up for you as well. And so, like we said, we had
you get sick.
a couple things. It was mostly getting sick. Yeah, we got sick. We both got sick. You just had like a couple day cold.
Yeah, I think so. That's all it was.
Yeah, and then I ended up getting a really nasty sinus infection, which ended up giving myself pink eye, which is really bad. That was awful. But I was able to get it taken care of. We got some antibiotics just by going down to the pharmacy. That was all it was. The pharmacist basically just called the doctor and just says, "Hey, what about this?" And they're like, "Okay." And they just gave it to me, and it was like $2. That was it, $2. And I got everything cleared up in just like a couple days. Yeah. So that was really nice. What, you talk about the allergies?
Yeah, allergies. So if you have allergies, just know that you probably will have them in Saranda. Yeah. I had really bad allergies again this year, just like last year. So I've just taken Zyrtec every day.
I definitely recommend stocking up on Zyrtec. That's one of those things you definitely want to bring with you, because you can get it in town in Saranda. It's just going to be a little bit more expensive than what you can get back in the States for that one, because you can't get it in bulk. It's like the small like packs.
Right. So, yeah.
And then we also noticed that like prices, of course, everywhere's been dealing with some level of inflation, and Saranda as well. It wasn't too bad. It was just a couple % higher we noticed from last year. Yeah. Again, based on how inexpensive the prices are. Also, it really didn't make much of a difference at all. Right. with us coming with a Western income. And then also with another thing we noted with accommodations is because like for some reason the season is starting earlier. So, which is also something to note because if you are going to go there, usually it used to be anything before the 15th of June was, or not until the 15th of June is when the summer prices start kind of kicking up. But this year we were seeing stuff 1st of June, people wanting, full price, full summer price, which is like 3 times what you could pay in the off season. And we even saw some places that was already they were trying to at least in May.
Yeah.
I don't know how successful they were, but they were trying to get you to pay like summer prices as early as May. So just something to keep a heads up on.
Yeah.
And then also there was one other thing that happened to us, and that was I had a personal tragedy with my sister, and which was really, really devastating. And I will say that she is alive and she's doing much, much better. But it really made it difficult, especially when you're so far away and you're dealing with a loved one back in the States, several thousand miles away, and that helpless feeling you can't do anything.
Right. Yeah.
And so that was something that happened during our time there as well. And again, it's something that's ongoing. She's still trying to recover. I haven't really talked about it much, but I will put a link in the description if you want to help her out, the GoFundMe, and it'll explain a little bit more about the whole circumstance. So,
yeah, that is just something though to think about, is have a plan if you are, overseas for an extended length of time. There's a chance that something could happen. So we always recommend having some kind of emergency fund to, if you need to get back to, your home country, if somebody's passed away or, a family member needs you. That's, just something to keep in mind as you're traveling.
So now as far as leaving Saranda, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, so we ended up deciding to go to Tirana since we had never been. And we were on our way to Ohrid in Macedonia. So we actually booked a private transfer to Tirana with our friend Carolyn. So that made it a little bit more reasonable for us to take a private car. And it's about a 4-hour ride from Saranda to Tirana.
If you go by car,
Yeah.
by bus, it'll be a little bit longer. But...
Yeah. So our share was around 80 euros for the two of us. So I would say if they're, expect to pay, I think about 120 euro, right, for a private transfer if it's just one or two people.
Yeah.
You can book a bus. You can book on Eurobus, I believe, and then Flixbus, but I think Flixbus will only take you to Vlora, and then you'll have to get a separate ride to Tirana.
Right, one of maybe the regional buses.
Yes. And the bus station in Saranda, there's actually not a station.
It's like a street.
It's a street where all of the buses line up, and you just have to look in the window for your destination, or just try and ask the bus driver, where are you going? It is kind of chaotic.
Yeah, basically it's a street. If you look on a map, it's like the one right next to that runs up and down with.
Yeah, it's Rossman's. By Friendship Park. Is what it's called. So there's no bus station. There is a ticket counter. So just keep that in mind. And then we spent 3 days in Tirana then before moving on to our next leg of the trip to North Macedonia.
And then one other note, if you are going from Saranda to Tirana, you just pay attention to what bus station you're going to, because there's a couple different stations. So you might find yourself at one station and then realize that you still have to take another bus or a taxi to get to your accommodations, or maybe even the airport or something too.
Yeah.
And then we do have a recommendation for taxis there, and that is MerrTaxi, MERR Taxi, and that's an app that you can download. And it's actually a taxi, but it works kind of like a rideshare. So you'll know ahead of time what you're paying and all that kind of stuff too. And it was actually pretty reasonably priced. So I wouldn't, you're not going to get, screwed over on that one too bad. So.
No. Yeah, it's a lot easier.
Yeah. So if you guys are just like us and you're wanting to, travel for an experience, or maybe you're just trying to get tired of maybe some safety issues, or just looking for a better quality of life, cost of living, and all that, definitely check out nomadicabundance.com. It's our member site that we're putting together where we're trying to provide resources and everything like that will help you not only plan your trip, but also while you're on the road. Things like the quick start guides and things like that, you can get those there too as part of the membership.
And also our cost of living.
Yeah, and we have basically full cost of living for each month, so you can see exactly what we're spending on the road, including all of our travel in between places and things like that. And we have, of course, other exclusive content as well, like some videos and even some of our podcast episodes, like bonus and extended versions too. So definitely check that out if it's something that you're really interested in. We'll leave a link in the description, and of course you can also scan the QR code on the screen.
So yeah, would we wanted to stay longer in Saranda? And I think that was a big yes for us this time. Because after visiting last year, we actually weren't sure if we wanted to go back to Saranda. So we decided that we did, just to give it one more try. And we really loved our time there. We had such a great time in Saranda, being by the water and the beaches and all of the beautiful nature. We definitely really, really liked it. And also having all of our friends there helped us a lot. And we just had a really great work-life balance. So yeah, if you're looking for a place that's very reasonably priced, and you want to be by the water and kind of have that outdoor, kind of life experience, we would definitely recommend checking out Saranda.
Yeah, and also it's a really great place to jump in and out of, especially if you're looking at trying to maximize your time in the Schengen area, like some of the more Western European countries. It's great because it's not Schengen, so you can jump out, spend some time in Albania until your time resets, and then you can go back in again. Another really great thing. And like she said, like sometimes you go someplace and it just doesn't feel, there's something that's off, or we just weren't sure. And I'm super glad that we went back, because basically it comes down to some places you just need to give them a second chance.
Yeah.
And because it could be like just like the state of mind that you're in, or some external factor. And so we always try to make sure that we do give places, one more shot.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that we did, because Saranda is one of our favorite places now. And I mean, for all those reasons, plus it's got a good community as well. And especially if you're slow traveling, having that good community is really nice. It's nice to be able to kind of go somewhere and be able to connect with somebody. It just makes your time there easier. And it's great because you can learn like some of the great restaurants and other little things too, to make your time even better there. So
yeah.
Well, we can't wait to return, and maybe we'll see you there. I don't know. But you can also check out more of our Albania episodes, both on our YouTube channel and our podcast, Nomadic Abundance. And other than that, we'll have links to everything that we've talked about in the show notes. And thank you guys so much. Subscribe if you haven't. Happy wandering.
Happy wandering.